Hey fellas, I'm not usually one to jump on trends, but I thought I'd change things up today and talk about the Mario movie. Damn it!
The 2023 animated Super Mario Bros. Film just released a few days ago, and it's a good movie, alright? Go watch it. If you like Mario, you'll like the film. Even if you don't like Mario, I'm sure you'll find some sense of enjoyment in it. That's my verdict. Thank you and good night. There's also the fact that you really need to watch it because I'm going to be spoiling a whole lot in this video. Of course, I have a lot more to say on it, but with this one, I'm going to be a lot more nonchalant, not just because I don't have a script for it. It's hard to formulate a fully flowing opinion when I've only seen the movie twice. Instead, I'll be working mostly off bullet points and trying to formulate something out of those. Oh yeah, there's also the fact that a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about don't have any footage to represent them at the moment, so I'm going to be using this photo of Chris Pratt Mario for those segments. Better get used to it. But of course, that didn't take history to just talk about movies, so let's discuss everything leading up to the release of the Mario film. Little known fact, right? This isn't the first time Mario's been adapted to the big screen. That honor goes to 1993's Super Mario Bros. It's a film I've seen 4 times. Yeah, it's not very good. It's fine on its own as this film, but as an adaptation, it's just poor. And if you disagree, look at the Goombas and tell me it's a good adaptation. Go on. Suffice it to say, this movie failed financially and critically, which led Nintendo to not really make any big screen adaptations for the next 30 years. But interestingly, they've had plans to adapt Mario to the big screen again since at least 2014. You see, this funny little thing happened in 2014. Sony got hacked. They made this movie that pissed off some people, and then Sony's entire email database was released to the public. Way to get back at them. One of the most interesting things highlighted here was that Nintendo was negotiating with Sony to make a Mario film.
Hell, I'll believe that when I see it.
Now, you see, if that was leaked today, people would have high hopes, largely because Sony's done films like Spider-Verse. But back then, what was Sony Pictures Animation known for? Open Season? Open Season 2? Huh, I can't forget Open Season 3. And then 3 years later, there were reports that Nintendo was working with Illumination, which was very indicative of what they were doing at the time. Nintendo was working closely with Illumination's parent company, Universal, to develop things like Super Nintendo World. Like, it was only a matter of time before the minions reached Mario. And then in January of 2018, it was officially announced that Nintendo was working with Illumination to bring a Super Mario film to the big screen.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
And that was all we got until the fateful day, the 24th of September, 2021. Oh boy. Jack Black as Bowser, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, but most importantly, Chris Pratt as Mario. Yeah, the internet didn't react kindly to this one.
What is this?
I mean, it was for many reasons. First and foremost, you sidelined the guy who's been doing Mario's voice for 30 years, and to replace him with that? Still, I think I was more hopeful than most. I wasn't absolutely hating the cast, but it wasn't something that got me really excited. But I gave it a chance, and it was just fine. The real highlight here was definitely Jack Black as Bowser. The man absolutely sold the role. It was amazing. I had no doubt that he would be the best part of the movie, and his voice acting only complements the writing here. There's this essence here that balances an actual character, but also the aggression of Bowser. He doesn't feel as one-dimensional as you'd expect, and it works really well throughout the movie. Of course, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong was Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. It definitely worked better than I expected. Not as good as Jack Black as Bowser, but it still fit the role fairly well. I will say though, there is this one scene where Seth Rogen does his classic laugh. I could not contain my laughter during that scene. Like, this is Donkey Kong, not Seth Rogen. But it is Seth Rogen. All the other roles worked fine. Charlie Day's Luigi definitely captured the essence of the character. Anya Taylor-Joy's Peach was Anya Taylor-Joy's Peach. Keegan-Michael Key's Toad definitely wasn't a highlight, but he brought enough to the character of Toad so that it worked. Supporting roles were all good, but of course the most important one, Chris Pratt as Mario. And oh boy, it's just fine. He fits the role just fine, and the idea of Chris Pratt as Mario fades away very quickly. They definitely ease you into the role as well, opening his character with a plumbing commercial where he puts on an Italian accent. It just makes it seem very natural, and I think we all owe the man an apology. Were there better picks? Probably, but his efforts were definitely underestimated before the release of the film. And that was all we got until November of the next year, where we got our first trailer for the film. Before the trailer, they released a poster, which definitely eased me a bit with the film, because the animation looked gorgeous. It was just so bright and colorful and perfectly captured the essence of Mario in one image. And I'm very happy to say the movie does that throughout. Even the scenes that don't take place in the Mushroom Kingdom or the Kong Kingdom, just the scenes in Brooklyn feel so bright and colorful. It's just fun to look at and is easily the best animation Illumination's done. It struck a great balance where it evoked this sense of cartooniness, but also didn't go overboard with it. It felt real while also capturing the essence of the Mario games, which is something that nothing besides the actual Mario games have really done. There wasn't a single second in this movie where it felt or looked dull, essentially. Like, there's nothing more to say there. It just looks pretty. There is this weird sense of uncanny valley, however, especially with characters that don't appear in Mario games. Like, there's these two folks at the start that just look out of place, largely because they don't originate from a Mario game. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it just doesn't mesh very well with everything else in the environment, although I don't think it ever tried to. Yeah, I didn't have to reiterate it. The animation is nice. Some more promotion over the next few months, and then finally, the movie released.
Yeah, I'll believe that when
Yeah, as I said, it's a good movie. I had a really good time with it, and I noticed that with how fast it flew by, whether that's due to pacing or just having fun with it, It's a very quick movie. Like, it does not mess around. Within the first 15 minutes they're in the Mushroom Kingdom, it's insane. Nothing ever feels out of place or overstays its welcome, which helps really capture the audience in the story. Of course, that can also always be attributed to the hour-and-a-half runtime, which is fairly short for a film. Of course, this is a family movie, so I'm not shocked, but like... Come on, I want more Luigi, man. A big criticism I've seen is the story, but I don't think it's the story itself, it's actually the way it's executed. So, the plot of this movie, Mario and Luigi are plumbers, they both fall in a pipe, Mario goes to the Mushroom Kingdom, Luigi gets kidnapped. Mario, Peach, and Toad go on a journey to rescue Luigi, and then they do just that. It's exactly what you'd expect.
Now, of course, this wouldn't be a proper discussion from me without a little bit of whining. Maybe a bit more than a little bit. This movie was good, but I had problems, okay? Give me a break.
Don't get me wrong, I think the movie is really great, but the story does brush over a lot of things. There are a decent few scenes where it's just Mario's here, and he has to get to here. Put a cut there. It's very much point A to point B without showing the journey, which really takes away a lot of the excitement from Mario games. Mario has always been about the journey rather than the destination, and while the movie does show that, it doesn't show it as well as I hoped it would. Like, there's a bit where Mario, Peach, and Toad travel across 5 kingdoms, and it doesn't really show that. It's like a 2-minute montage, if that. It really took away so much from what they could have done. And I do get it, hour-and-a-half runtime is what you need for a family movie, but I wouldn't have been pissed if there was an extra 20 minutes here. Not just adding onto the plot, but also developing these characters. The goal of, oh, Mario's in the Mushroom Kingdom and has to save Luigi, doesn't feel as impactful when you don't get to see a lot of their relationship. Don't get me wrong, it's still impactful, but it's a lot of tell rather than show, which I'm not a huge fan of. Like, Luigi just says a few times, oh man, Mario's the best guy I know. Like, good for you, bucko, can we see that? I feel like adding onto the runtime also could have helped with things like, why does Peach need Mario? Like, Mario has a goal here, Peach has a goal here. Is there a common interest? Yes, but it's not really shown as to why. Mario just kind of shows up in Peach's castle like, hey, I need to save my brother. And Peach goes with that. I guess it's in character for her, but it's very much based on the assumption that you know Peach as a character. Which, trust me, there's a reason this film has received mediocre reviews. It's because half the people watching this don't even know what a Mario is. Also, the Lumali. Like, there was no point to it being here. It was definitely an addition by Illumination, although I don't know why they're promoting suicide to kids. It makes for a few good laughs, but this movie already had plenty, and the character doesn't go anywhere. I'm not saying it needed a whole ass arc, I'm just saying you could have done something more. Still, I do think the characters here are very well done, and I'm thankful for that because this movie is very much more character-driven than story-driven. Mario is established exactly how you'd expect him to as a determined character who's not gonna give up for people he cares about. And while some scenes are missing a lot that could have shown that, it's still portrayed very well through his mannerisms and the things he says. You can tell that he's a determined guy. And Luigi's the direct opposite of that, being this very timid, scared guy who always relies on his brother, but isn't afraid to stand his own ground, especially towards the end. And then Peach, well, she's Peach.
I'm not gonna say the phrase slay queen girl boss on camera. Oh, fuck.
I really enjoyed Peach as a character in this movie, and also Donkey Kong. Seth Rogen captures the cockiness and attitude that Donkey Kong has always had. Also, the Donkey Kong rap is in this movie. That's completely unrelated to what I'm saying. I just really like the fact that it's in this movie. He also has a fair bit of development in this movie, starting off as a grumpy, cocky guy who hates Mario and has a bad relationship with his father. But as the movie goes on, he sort of uses the two hand in hand to improve himself, and by the end, he realizes friendship is magic. Now, of course, I wouldn't understand this because Bowser doesn't feel like your typical villain, he more so feels like a hopeless romantic. He has a whole musical number thirsting over Peach. It is incredible! That leads me to another point. The music in this film. Wow! I'm so glad Nintendo's finally willing to release something officially on streaming services because I can't get enough of the Mario movie soundtrack. Brian Tyler did the score, these brilliant orchestral remixes of classic Mario tracks, and it works perfectly throughout the film. Sometimes it's very subtle, other times it catches your attention immediately, but regardless of what it is, you can tell that there is clear passion put into the soundtrack here. It never really takes you out of the movie either. With the exception of a few tracks here weren't done by Brian Tyler, and instead of the product of Illumination having some fun with this film. Take On Me, Holding Out for a Hero, Mr. Blue Sky, these didn't have to be here. And that's where that sentence ends, they really didn't have to be here. They don't ruin the movie, but they don't really add anything either, it's just there. But for the most part, the music here is incredible, and I really like how it encompasses all of Mario's history. You have stuff from the original Super Mario Bros. All the way to Super Mario Odyssey, there is nothing that's left out here. Maybe except for the soundtrack to Mario teaches typing, because nobody knows that thing even had a soundtrack. To be fair, I don't even know if it did. The movie encompassing the entire history of Mario doesn't just extend to the music, it extends to the entire film. There's references all throughout here, and I think it's what really sells this as a great Mario movie. Any Mario game, name it, and there's probably a reference in here. Maybe except for Mario teaches typing again, nobody really cares about that game. It's so much fun as a Mario fan to just look at something and say,
oh, it's that thing! You know the thing? I like Mario!
And I think the best thing, especially in the way the world is structured, is how it doesn't really focus on anything in particular. Like, the idea of floating bricks or power-ups are just played off as a normal thing. There's a scene where Mario just runs over floating bricks, and they don't spend 5 minutes fixating on why they're floating, he just says, yeah, they're floating. It's just really fun to see all of the stuff, whether it's right in front of you or far in the background, it's very interesting. While the movie wouldn't get stale without the references definitely help in making the movie more interesting. However, the amount of references here and everything else surrounding that definitely poses an important question in how accessible this movie is as a non-Mario fan. I could go on and ask a non-Mario fan, but it's surprisingly hard to find those kind of people in this day and age. I think most people going into this movie will at least have a basic understanding of Mario. Italian plumber eats mushroom, gets big, stomps on Goombas. If you don't know that, there's something wrong with you. So overall, I think if you at least know the bare minimum for Mario, you will find a sense of enjoyment in this, but if you don't even know that, it might be a bit difficult. The ideas are difficult to get behind, and a lot of the character development relies on you knowing who these characters are already, especially the way they act. Like I mentioned earlier with Peach helping Mario, it's definitely in character for her, but how are people who haven't played Mario gonna know that? It's definitely developed throughout the movie, but it's still difficult to get your head around. Mario stuff aside, it's definitely a charming movie, but I'm relying a lot on what ifs here. It's a Mario movie, okay? Enjoy it for that. And for that, I think it's damn near perfect. As a Mario movie, this is the best Mario movie that could exist. Now, to be fair, considering its competition, that's not saying much, but I still think it is a perfect Mario adaptation. And as a movie on its own, I think it's fine as well. It might not be as accessible as, I don't know, Despicable Me or something, but it's still fairly accessible to people who don't know Mario. And hey, even people who don't know Mario are bound to know him eventually because there is so much world building in this movie. They set up so much with the Kong army, Peach's backstory, there's a whole cinematic universe waiting to happen. Now, do I want that? I'm not sure, but more Jack Black Bowser would be incredible. The Mario movie is exactly what I wanted it to be, and I am so glad for that. It's just an hour and a half of pure fun, and as a Mario fan, it delivered on everything it should have. The animation reflected the world of Mario perfectly, the story, while basic, definitely is a Mario story. The characters are... yeah, they're Mario characters. And surprisingly, the voice acting is really good. While I do think an extra 20 or 30 minutes could have helped it in building its characters or the story, the movie is great as is, with so much fun music and references. It's just a good movie, damn it. While it may not be the most accessible thing to non-Mario fans, it's clear that it's going to be a huge success. It's already had the biggest opening for an animated movie of all time. Yeah, that's right, screw you, Frozen 2. This movie made me happy, and if it doesn't make you happy, I really couldn't care less about your opinion, okay?
Overall, it's a good movie. Go watch it. Of course, me being the dedicated Mario fan I'm gonna go watch it a third time now. I might have watched the wrong Mario movie. It wasn't even this one this time. They just put an instructional tape on plumbing.